Who is your daddy? I am your father.
You fathers will understand.
My father taught me many things.
I got an idea. How about you all sit there quietly while I make dad noises?
All right, here we are with episode 84 of Fathers of the Grind. My name is Tim Nestor. I'm here with Derek Teague. Derek, I know you're typing, but pause for a second to say hello.
Hello!
Oh, very nice. Very friendly.
So great to be here.
We are nearing the beginning of school season. For us, at least, I'm very excited about that. My wife is very excited about that. Not that our schedules get any better. They actually get a little busier, but at least it gets the kids occupied throughout the day. We don't have as much in your face, I'm bored conversations.
Yeah.
So that'll be good. Looking forward to that. But other than that, I mean, it's kind of a pretty slow time video game wise, except for the fact that it doesn't feel like a slow time. So when you look at like major video game releases, we've talked about how July was a little slow, and the start of August had, one or two big releases, mainly just Hellblade, which we will talk about a lot today. But actually, as I'm looking at the games I'm playing and the stuff I want to play that's come out recently, it's not been that bad. It hasn't been too slow, so it's been pretty good. And I can see right now that you've been playing a whole bunch of stuff. So why don't we let you kick us off with some of the stuff you've been playing while you were on your little vacation there, your staycation, as it were. So what have you been playing?
Well, a lot. I'll start with what I finished this week. I'll say I finished Hellblade, but we'll talk about that later. So I'm not going to talk about it right now.
Okay.
I also finished Deus Ex Mankind Divided for the third time. This time on PC, where I talked about this maybe a couple months ago during the Steam summer sale. They were selling all the Deus Ex games for $20, and that included Mankind Divided with the season pass. And that was the big selling point for me, because even though I had played Mankind Divided twice and own it, I wanted the season pass, and I figured, well, I can play it on my PC with beautiful graphics and get the season pass. So I did complete the game again on PC, and plan on doing the season pass as well, which is I think 3 single-player DLC.
I thought there was maybe 1 or 2. I don't know there was 3. Nice.
When I logged in, there was 3.
Nice.
Desperate Measures, and then I forgot what the other 2 were, because
Cool.
I started with Desperate Measures. So other stuff I finished. So far, I finished 4 games this week. The Walking Dead Season 3, which I had done the first 2 episodes back when it launched in December, and then waited for all of them to launch, 3, 4, and 5, the rest of the episodes, but then didn't feel like jumping back in, but decided this would be the perfect time to sit down and play that. Really enjoyed it. I will say this. I felt like the season started off better than any Walking Dead season they've done before.
Wow, nice.
Then it kind of I don't know, I just didn't care about the characters as much as I cared about them the first 2 episodes. So it kind of finished off more of a meh. I still enjoyed it. I would give it if I was going to give it a score, I'd give it a solid 8.5. But the way it started, I was potentially thinking this was going to be my favorite Walking Dead, but I think I'll stick with season 2 being my favorite.
Same technical issues with all Telltale stuff?
I mean, it's still janky. It looks better. It definitely looks better. It's still janky, but it ran better. I didn't have freezes or anything like that.
You playing this on PC?
No, I played that on Xbox One.
Xbox, okay. All right, well, good.
Because I bought it prior to getting my PC, yeah.
Yeah, because I played, the last Telltale game I played, well, actually, I'll talk about what I'm playing here shortly, but the last one I played all the way through was Tales from the Borderlands, I think, and on the PS4. And as much as I enjoyed that game, I've talked about that a lot, the technical issues were very obvious.
And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I have to be in the mood for Telltale games. I think they're good, but they are literally the same thing over and over. There's no fun gameplay aspect to it. It's just whether you're in the mood to watch a movie that you're kind of controlling. And I've said this before, I struggle to watch shows. I started, what's that show? Black Sails, and I really liked it. But I haven't watched more than I think 4 episodes because every time I would start an episode, I'd fall asleep. Every time I start a movie, I fall asleep. So I just don't watch. I think it's because my brain is. I'm not interacting with it, and so I'm just watching it, and then I'm out. Whereas with a video game, you're constantly you're doing something. You're using
Right.
your mind. You're constantly moving. You're engaged. I guess what you.
Have you ever fallen asleep mid-game?
No, never. I've gotten really tired
Really?
where I'm like I have to get off, but
Yeah.
never fallen asleep.
I've started to fade out a little bit in certain games, especially if it's like a real slow-paced game. There's been times when I catch myself like drifting and like, whoa, I just fell asleep. So that's happened to me. Hey, by the way, with Black Sails, it does get better seasons 2 and 3. I haven't watched the last season yet, but it does get better as it goes.
I would like to watch it, but like I said, I fell asleep.
And the guy who plays Charles Vane should totally be Geralt if they ever do a Witcher show or movie.
Yeah, he's a cool character. I like him.
Yeah,
like I said, I like it. Even season 1, and I've heard that the seasons 2 and 3 are the better. But season 1's been fun. It's not like I'm bored with it. It's just me. The other game I finished was Andromeda. So a lot of these games, just so people know, like Deus Ex, I was already 4 or 5 hours into it. The Walking Dead, I had already done 2 episodes. Andromeda, I finished it last weekend. We're recording on a Saturday tonight. And I finished it last weekend when my vacation started. I was at the end, so I just knocked out the last 3 story missions. But so that was my second time finishing Andromeda.
Did you get a different ending, or was it pretty much the same?
I got the same ending because I did everything. I did everything like I did the first time. I was actually more OP this time because I had so much better armor, better weapons. I knew what I was doing. I knew how all the systems work, so it made it for a fun time. Now, real quick to talk about the stuff that I'm playing that I have not beat, or it's impossible to beat it. I did start Mad Max up again. I don't know. I don't know why I keep coming back to this game. This is like my 4th time coming back to it. It's fun. It always starts out fun, and then I just get irritated with, I feel like I'm doing nothing. I feel like I'm just driving around the wasteland, collecting scraps, and then I can't stand, he can't climb things. I can't stand all the restrictions they have.
Yep.
So it's a cool game, but it feels like a cool game if it came out on the 360. It feels
it's a 2-year-old game
Yeah.
at this point, and we've come a long way in 2 years with games already.
We have. We've come a long way just this year. But it just feels dated. But like I said, I'm not going to sit here and knock it. I think it's a fun game. Getting to the point where at some point I just have to say, this isn't for me, even though I like it.
Yeah.
It just gets repetitive and boring. But we'll see. I might still play it. The 2, I guess you could say casual things I was playing this week that were just, besides Rocket League, I played a lot of Rocket League.
More Rocket League.
Was I played a lot of the NHL 18 beta, and actually, and this surprised me, Ian probably played the game for 20 hours, and he was just doing the 3v3.
The threes, the 3 mode is kind of cool. I can talk about that
he
too.
Was, he was just having fun with that, and him and I did a lot of versus. We never really did co-op because I tried to do co-op when we first started playing it with Eli, and it was just kind of confusing with both of us on the same team. Plus, Eli's selfish; he doesn't like to pass. But we ended up doing a lot of verses. We just played a lot of it solo, see how good we could do. We had a lot of fun, and it ended up being that Ian was like, "Dad, I got a $25 Walmart card. You can have it if you go buy an Xbox card and pre-order this game." So I'm planning on pre-ordering that and using some of his money that he wants to own half the game. And he's already bought half of FIFA 18, so he's been pre-ordering games, even though he's normally not my gamer. And then the other thing I played, and this was actually just today, is I wanted to check out NBA Live because I know they've been really pushing this game because they've failed probably the last 3 live games they've released, and they took last year off. They didn't have an NBA Live 17. They did have an NBA Live 16, which I remember I tried the demo, and I was like, this is... And by the way, I put beta, but it's really a demo. They released a demo and I played it for like 2 seconds. Like, this is stupid. Well, this one kind of hooked me right away because they allowed you to do the single player campaign, which I don't really care about most sports games anymore for just like the season mode or anything like that. I play them for like their campaign type things, and so this one's got its own little thing where you're basically the star college player who gets injured, and it's like a severe injury, and so they basically call you the comeback kid. Like you're working to come back to make the draft, and you have like a year to do it, and so you go through it. You, the player, go through like 5 or 6 games where you have to prove yourself, and you get ratings for each game. And I did pretty good. I was averaging around 80 rating, 80 out of 100. And so I ended up getting, at the end of the demo, my stock went all the way up, and I ended up getting drafted number 7 to the Timberwolves. So it asked me at the end of that, do you want to pre-order this? I was like, oh, let's just check out, because they said it's 33% off. And I was like, let's see how much it is. And I forgot, I have EA Access, because I had gotten EA Access for 1 month to pre-order Star Wars Battlefront 2, Need for Speed, and FIFA 18.
And this is all on the Xbox One, just to be clear, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because of EA
So
Access,
I went and checked it out in the store, and it said it was $36 to pre-order this game. This is a $60 game, by the way. $36 to pre-order this game now. And then I checked my Microsoft account, and it said I had $5 for, you know how they do the monthly rewards. So they had given me $5. So 36 minus 5, I paid $31 for it. So I went ahead and purchased it because I enjoyed it. Because what I did in the demo carries over. It's just going to continue on, so I don't have to redo what I just did.
So
if I had to redo it, I wouldn't have done it.
Will you have 2K and Live? Are you going to get 2K too?
I don't know.
2K as well?
We'll see if 2K comes out, because 2K is supposed to be really, really good. Like, it's supposed to be a step up, like, even from last year as far as graphics and all that stuff. I might, but I wanted to give Live a fair shot, and it hooked me, and I was like, $31 for a digital game on day one on a console. Now, on PC, it's realistic for me to get that, but on console, I was like, I'll do it.
Nice.
So, bottom line, I've kind of been
busy week.
Yeah, busy week. I've been really in the mood for sports games, and I've been enjoying it, and it's been pretty cool watching my kids play. They didn't like NBA as much, but they did love NHL, so I'll definitely get NHL as well, and play that with the kids.
Yeah, I tried the NHL beta once or twice with that threes mode, I think they call it, right?
Yeah.
And first of all, it looks and plays really, really well. Second of all, I'm really bad at hockey games. I probably haven't played a hockey game for any length of time since Wayne Gretzky 3D hockey on the N64. It's been a long time since I've tried a legit hockey game.
Yeah.
So I'm not very good, number one. But number two, at first I didn't like, so I tried the recommended control settings where you use the right stick to kind of do your passing and your shooting and stuff. And I wasn't really keen on it. I was like, I just want a shoot button and a pass button. So I almost changed it back, but I gave it one more try, and it started to grow on me by the time I finished playing that game. I like the control system that they have there. So kind of interesting, especially if you're a hockey fan. But I've heard that if you're just a general sports fan, that this is probably one of the better like team management RPG side of things type of sports game. That's what I've heard. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just what I've heard.
Yeah, it's a good game. I really enjoy. I was the same way. I do buy most of the NHL games, but when they made the change to the right stick, I was like, ugh, I don't like this. You know, I just want my shoot button. I want to keep it simple.
Yeah,
but
that's what I was thinking.
Once you realize it gives you full control. Like I was doing stuff against Ian, and Ian was like, it was pretty cool to like impress him because he was like, "How did you do that? What up, bro? Dab it."
There he is. There he is.
Yeah, that's my boy E. But we were playing, and I was using like Sidney Crosby, and I was doing dekes. You know, like I was controlling my stick with the puck and doing dekes and doing backhand goals on his goalie because I was getting breakaways, and he was like, "How the heck? Every time I get a breakaway, all I can do is just shoot." Like he just shoots it straight at the goalie, and I'm like,
"You're like, well,
you gotta juke the goalie, man. You gotta get the goalie."
Like Daddy was in Mighty Ducks, you know, he learned this stuff.
Yeah, so I was deking him left and right.
Nice.
He did get me on the last game we played. He did beat me, like, I think 7-6, and I was not happy. I walked away.
That's embarrassing.
But I had blown him out the
Uh-huh.
first 3 times. So
Well, good. As long as you gave your son the sound defeat that he needed
yeah,
to
he
learn
didn't know he's
the
still,
character lesson.
He's
Right.
still a chump compared to me.
It's very important that kids learn those kind of lessons, you know?
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, I did play a little bit of NHL beta. I thought that was pretty cool. It's definitely not one I'll buy, but it was interesting. And it does remind me how much I really do enjoy a good sports game. And I won't do what I did a couple years ago, and that is get overhyped about Madden, buy it, and then realize this is the same Madden with a few extra mini camp drills. And so I'm not going to do that this time around. But I will tell you this: if EA decides, with the surprise success of the Switch, to go ahead and send a port over to the Switch, I might get it, because then I could sit there on the couch and play it during football on Saturdays and Sundays. I might get it if that's the case. I'd love to have football on a handheld while I'm watching football on TV. Something about that just sounds
I'm
awesome
gonna
to me.
wait on Madden. I mean, not wait
Yeah.
wait to buy it later. Wait for more information on it. And if
Yeah.
I like the single player, again, I don't care about the management. I don't care about the season stuff anymore. It bores me because that's all I can't even explain to you in words. That's all I did when I was younger. Like, yeah,
Same with me.
I played other games like Zelda,
NCAA
Mario and stuff.
especially. Yeah.
But I would just play season after
Yep.
season after season. I even told my kids, I'm like, I'm really surprised you guys don't play sports games the way I did, because they're kind of like me personality-wise, and like go in there and try, get your favorite team, and then make your best player, like, let's say hockey. Use Sidney Crosby and get like 100 goals in that one season, stuff like that. That's what I did. I would like make a player like the Heisman or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I would just constantly feed them the ball and stuff like that. So I'm not into that stuff anymore. That's all I did when I was younger. Now I like these like campaigns where you're controlling one guy, and based off of how you perform is how well he's not only viewed by the media in the game and your teammates and your coaching staff and stuff like that, but it's also how much experience you get to upgrade to get better, how much unlockables you get for like shoes and jerseys and all that stuff. So I like all that stuff because it puts pressure on me. I feel like I get really angry if I'm playing bad, because I'm like, this is costing me. Like, I'm gonna drop in the draft or whatever, And if I do really good, it's like that excitement of like, heck yeah, I know I'm outplaying everybody else. I'm going to get drafted high.
You should do that and then pick like a inside offensive lineman, like a right guard. Just like the most boring position to do over and over again, and at least in a video game. And just do that. See if you still have that same enjoyment.
Well, I think in the Madden one, they force you to play a certain player.
Oh, like
Kinda
a
like
skill
FIFA.
position? I'll put that in quotes. A skill position?
Yeah, I think they make you play a skill position. Like, it might even be quarterback, because I know in FIFA you could make Alex Hunter play any position, I believe.
Okay.
But you had to play as Alex Hunter, and he had to be on the pitch. Like, he had to. In soccer, it's a little bit different. Like you said, in football, there's positions where you literally you have nothing to do with the football. You just block.
At least in terms of the video game side of things. Like, obviously, in football, I'm not trying. If any of you listening are an offensive lineman or related to one, whatever, don't get offended. It takes a ton of skill, of course, but in terms of playing a video game, it's much more fun to be the quarterback, running back, wide receiver.
Yeah,
essentially.
and I think
Those are the
you
three
are
positions.
forced to do that. I think you are the quarterbackers.
I mean, if you have to be on defense, linebacker is probably the most fun because you get to hit people pretty hard and you get to drop back in coverage sometimes. But other than that, give me an offensive player. But yeah, so I would be very tempted to get that on the Switch if it comes on Switch, simply because of the portability option that system offers. We talked about that a lot. I won't say too much more about it, but otherwise, sports games this fall will be limited to whatever my friend Derek decides to buy on the PS4, if anything.
Which won't be much because the boys like the sports games. So
yeah. Well, the good news for you is that there's no like, hey, if you buy this, I'll buy that. With the sports games, you buy them wherever you want, because for the most part, I am not planning on playing them. The only thing I might play is I might go down and take over my Xbox 360 for my kids again and play a little NCAA from time to time, because I miss that series quite a bit. All right, so I finished Hellblade. Actually finished it up last night. I don't know the total time on it. Probably, like everyone's been saying, in that 7-hour range, maybe.
7,
I don't
8,
know. Yeah. I didn't really. I'm not sure if it keeps track on there. I didn't really look. But it wasn't very long. It took me maybe 3 evenings or so of sitting down and putting in a couple hours each time. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. I have a lot of thoughts on Hellblade, so we'll talk about that shortly. I started up Minecraft story mode with my kids, so all 5 kids sitting around on the couch. It's usually like before bedtime. I'll play it for 30 minutes or an hour, and they help me make the decision on what to say. It's been kind of fun because I like the choose-your-own-story type of storytelling that Telltale has, and I forget how much fun that is, especially if you haven't experienced it a lot. So for my kids, it's almost magical. Like whatever you pick to say, they'll respond to that thing. They think
Yeah.
it's awesome. So we're having fun playing that. We just finished Chapter 1, and we'll start up Chapter 2 probably tomorrow night. So that's pretty cool. I like that Telltale went a little more family-friendly with one of their games, because most of them, Wolf Among Us, even Batman, they're all very mature in terms of their content. So it's nice that there's one that the kids can play and watch too. And then lastly, I'm still playing this game called Sundered. What's up, buddy? Can Mommy help you with that? Hi. All right, close the door. Thank you. See, that's why I face the camera away from the door,
No.
away from that way
No
they can't
naked. No
they
naked.
can't sneak attack me when they're coming in. All right. So I'm playing this game Sundered. I've talked about this before, but I have a little bit more to say about it because I'm way farther into it now. I just started a boss battle that is either the final boss or it's the boss before the final boss. I'm very close to the end of the game. This game has a really cool skill tree that I don't know that I talked much about last time, but every time you play it, let me back up a little bit. It's got elements of Metroid, Castlevania. I talked about Ori last time. I'm actually feeling a lot more of the Ori vibe farther into the game because I've unlocked so many additional moves that make traversal and combat a lot more fun. Reminds me of Ori. Like as you unlock these moves, it's like, wow, this is a blast. This moves really smoothly. So I get a little bit of Ori vibes from it. Not too many, but some. And not as much Metroid vibes as I had said before. A lot more, like I said before, Outlast, a little bit of Ori. And there's some roguelike elements to it that normally would really annoy me. And that is every time you die, you go back to this hub where you then upgrade some skills and abilities, and then you go dive back in and kind of retrace your steps. And the thing that makes it very roguelike is that it procedurally generates the areas. So the entire map already has these large gray boxes. So certain areas are already designated, but what happens within each of those boxes is procedurally generated every time. You know, where the platforms are, how many enemies will jump out at you. So the experience is different every time. You know, where the breakable containers are to gather more orbs and stuff. Those are all different every time. So to me, I like that. Those are the parts of roguelikes that I can survive, that don't bother me. It's the other stuff with roguelikes that really, really bug me. This does have a sharp learning curve, a steep difficulty curve. But there's times when you've got your orbs up to the 10, 20, 30,000 count that when you die, it's actually okay because you didn't want to retrace your steps back to the hub anyway. It instantly transports you back to where you can upgrade. There is a massive skill tree. And each time you unlock a new ability, it unlocks a whole new web of increased damage, increased armor, increase your shield regeneration time, yada, yada, yada. You get a cannon eventually that you can fire, and it increases the damage there. So it's a really, really cool skill tree system that I gotta say, every time I upgrade something, even if I just upgrade a few notches of health and maybe one energy orb or something like that, or energy block, then I go back out and fight, and I notice the difference right away. I survive a little bit longer. If I upgrade my damage, I'm killing enemies in 2 hits instead of 3. So I really, really like this game. I think this game is kind of overlooked a little bit, but if you have any love for stuff like Ori and the Blind Forest, I encourage you to give this a try simply for the gameplay, or stuff like Outlast, maybe stuff like Metroid as well, or Castlevania. Just know that the storyline is essentially non-existent. I haven't really paid much attention. They have lots of little areas where you go and you hit these crystals and they'll tell you some of the lore. I'm not paying attention to that, but what's really fun is going into all these different areas and taking out these enemies and upgrading your skills. So I'm having a blast with it. It's a really sharp, slick-looking game.
How long did you play it? Do you know?
I am now 12 hours into it. So I'm thinking, and I've knocked out a lot of the stuff. There's still plenty of rooms that I have. There's still areas of the map that you can see. There's an exit to that area, but that map is completely blanked out that I haven't visited yet. I could probably put 15, 17 hours all said and done because I think I am at the end.
Yeah.
So it's fairly meaty for for a side-scrolling indie game, but it's really great. If you like a challenge, it's not for everybody. The challenge is definitely there. It's not easy, but I'm really enjoying Sundered. It's one of those games that's I'm like, I don't know what I want to play. I just finished Hellblade. I kind of want to jump into either Prey or I was thinking maybe Neo. And while I'm trying to decide what major AAA game to dive into, Sundered's been a nice game to kind of fill that space. So
Yeah.
there you go. All right. So let's talk about Hellblade. Speaking of which, both of us, I think, finished it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a second. But Hellblade is the newest game from Ninja Theory. This game developer from England. They are known for a bunch of games, most famously stuff like Heavenly Sword and Enslaved and the DMC, the Devil May Cry, kind of a reboot, and then they did some Disney Infinity. Ninja Theory knows how to make a game with some great and fun combat. It's simple with, weak strike, strong strike type of combos with some blocking, things like that. They make a good game. They make some really good combat as well in their games. Not too different from someone like a Platinum Games, except for maybe not quite as fast-paced. So I really like it. I know when they first announced it, they described this game as an independent AAA game, which is really interesting. They wanted to make that very clear. This is going to be a game that's independently published. It'll have an independent game style price point and length of game, but it's going to look and feel and sound like a AAA game. And I'll just give you my thoughts right out of the gate. I think they nailed it. I think it is definitely an independent AAA game. It's a shorter experience compared to most, but it looks better than, I would say, most AAA games. Maybe not all, but it's one of the prettiest games I've ever seen. So let's talk about this real quick. Let's talk about just give me your initial thoughts on Hellblade. What were you expecting going in based on their past games? And then let's get in a little bit to our impressions of it.
I would say overall, I was expecting something a little bit different, to be honest with you. It might be hard to express this. It feels like a AAA, but truly an indie game in the way it's designed. And what I mean by that is what I was expecting was not open world. I was expecting kind of a linear type world, maybe little open areas, but I was expecting like exploration and enemies, not the way they presented the enemies. Like, this felt like a game that was designed just to take you from room to room, do a puzzle. Once the puzzle's done, spawn random enemies. You have to beat them all in order to move into the next area. And it just felt like it didn't feel like, for me, a major game. It felt like they made this design choice with all the puzzles and in a way, forced combat to keep you entertained in a indie type way. Like they were
so taking there's some very interesting stuff with mental health we'll talk about, but taking all that kind of unique stuff out of the picture, just the gameplay structure itself, I totally agree with you. You're saying it's actually quite simple, and at times it's a little bit disappointing in terms of there's not a ton of creativity from experience to experience, from area to area.
And I'll get into more details because it'll sound like I'm knocking the game. And there are certain parts of it where I was like, oh my gosh, this is pissing me off, or this is annoying. Let me say this. This is how I actually feel about the game. I didn't like playing it. I didn't have fun playing it. So that makes it sound like I hate the game. I don't. Like, objectively, it's a good game. Like, I know there's the Jessies and Thomas and a bunch of people on our page and Fathers of Grind group that are like, this game is amazing, it's game of the year. It's not game of the year for me. It'll be lucky if it's top 10. I doubt it will be. It was not fun to play. There were moments, as somebody who loves Dark Souls and Bloodborne, there was a couple of boss fights where I was like, hell yeah, this was fun. Yeah. This was a well thought out boss fight.
Bosses have some cool attack patterns that you have to figure out, and very satisfying when you defeat them.
Exactly. And there's even a section in the game leading to a boss where the puzzles were cool. They weren't like,
Yeah.
oh, let me stand here for 30 minutes.
Are you talking about the
And-
illusion type area?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was like,
Very
liked
interesting.
I liked the illusion area. I didn't like the puzzles, and it was, for me, and it depends on the order you go into, but the first area I went into, I had to sit there and look for, it was like, where's Waldo? Where's this P? Oh, yeah, this is so fun. And then
And by the way,
after-
people, he's not talking about actual urine. He's talking about these runes you had to find. So
Yeah.
all these doors would have these red symbols on them. They're called runes. And then you go to the door, you look at them, and then you have to explore the environment and find a shadow or a shape that only at one specific angle would match that shape. And
Yeah.
then boom, you've unlocked.
So
that
let me
part of the
say
door.
this, because again, there's
Yeah.
subjective and objective with me. Subjectively, not fun, didn't care about it. Objectively, I thought it was well thought out, especially some of the, like the way you would, like there was one where you have, it's the way you stand. Well, this actually
Yes.
happened several times. Where
Yeah.
you stand, it would bring two objects together
Yep.
to form the shape that you wanted. And I'm
Because
like,
there's these weird,
"That's
like, kind of
smart."
invisible blobs
Yeah.
hanging in the air. And that confused me with the first time they showed that puzzle. I was like,
Mhm.
what am I supposed to do with this? And then finally,
Yeah.
when I got at the right angle, it clicked. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh.
So there's a ton of, like, if you like puzzles, I totally get it. I'm just saying the way the game was designed, like go from this place, have this guy who has great voice acting skills and is actually talking about interesting stuff,
Yes.
talk to you, and while he's talking to you, you're just doing this Where's Waldo crap, and then once you do Where's Waldo, let's fling 5 enemies at you. Now let me say this, the combat in the beginning, I hated it. Now I like the way it felt, but the way they have you, like your view of Senua is pretty close up.
It
So
is.
it's like it's designed almost like a Dark Souls, like one-on-one battle. This is just you and me, but it's not. There's like 10 random guys that will just show up behind you and you don't know.
Yeah.
Now this is where the objective part. They're very smart and they're like, well, Senua has voices in their head, and
Yeah.
sometimes they help you and sometimes they don't. And in
They'll be like,
combat,
"Behind
they
you."
help-
Yeah.
Yes. In combat, they help you. They'll be like,
Right.
behind you.
Yeah.
Block. Or something
Right.
like that. They'll say something real quick, and
Right.
you're like,
Evade.
oh, there's
Yeah.
somebody behind you. So
Mhm.
that was cool, but in the
It was.
beginning, I wasn't picking up on that, and I was getting pissed off because I'm like, I'm about ready to fight this dude, and I'm about ready to make this cool move. And also, there was a part I died a lot, and it was because I was swinging at this guy. This guy appeared, and my game automatically locked onto him, and so it messed me up, and this guy would hit me, and I was dying, and I was getting so angry until I, finally figured out how to do it correctly. But combat it took a little time for me. It is cool, but at the same time, with how close they have Senua in the picture and I didn't like the random enemies. And again, I get it. It makes sense without being a spoiler. She's battling things in her head, so this is all
Right.
they can create these enemies however they want.
Yeah,
They can
the way they
look
would
whatever they want.
materialize was really
Yeah,
interesting.
they can
Yeah,
appear anywhere they want.
Right.
It-
In some
it's-
cases, you could tell it was going to happen. I remember walking through one area. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to fight in here." I'm on my way back
Yeah.
through, and as I came back through, yep, the doors closed and a fight ensued. Let me
They've
take
always been pretty predictable with that because, like, we didn't go through their game. Well, we read them off, but if you go through their games, Heavenly Sword was that way, Enslaved was that way, and DMC. You walk in a room, they close you off, and you fight. And so that was
Right.
a little disappointing because I'm like, I get it. This is a smaller title. I'm not expecting open world or whatever, but you don't have to do something that you were doing 10 years ago that most developers have moved away from, and that's that
Right.
invisible walls everywhere, and you have to beat these enemies to unlock a wall, and that's kind of annoying. But
Well, let me
whatever.
just say that I am glad that Ninja Theory moved back to a serious and darker toned game after doing
Yeah.
Disney Infinity. I think it's great. I'm looking forward to what they
I
have
wish
next.
this would have. I feel like Hellblade should have been DLC for Disney Infinity.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, throw Senua into that world, see what happens.
Yeah, that's great.
Actually, she would make a really cool little statuette, though. You got to be honest, like those little Infinity statues. She would look really cool.
She is a cool character.
As a statue. She's very cool, very well designed character. Okay, let me take a step back real quick and tell you what I was expecting. I was expecting a very dark story because everyone talked about how it's going to be very dark and very much about, some aspects of mental illness and grieving. We weren't sure what, but there was some hints about that in the game previews. So I did expect that. I also expected, I guess, a little more exploration, but more so I expected to collect items. I expected to level up abilities, to equip new swords. I don't know why. I just kind of assumed that would be part of this, action RPG. That's just what I assumed. It was going to be an action RPG. Just so you guys know, no RPG elements whatsoever in this. Zero.
No.
There's zero things to upgrade, nothing to equip. There's no menu screen where you go and you just select what class you are. None of that. You are literally just think of like Shadow of the Colossus type game where you are exactly what you are. That's the character. Here's your weapon. Nothing will change throughout the whole game. So
Which that's intelligent in its own way, like with the way they did the entire game. But like I said, and like you were saying, this is what we went into the game expecting, and what we got was a little bit different. And for me, I wanted more. This felt like a indie game with a coat of AAA paint. That's what it felt like to me. It did not feel like a full AAA game, which again, I understand it's an independent AAA game. It was a lower price. It is a smaller title. But I'm talking about the actual game design. The way it's laid out for you felt like an indie game. Like they were doing certain things to make it a little bit longer because they did not have much to this game.
Yeah.
And I even think that's why a lot of the puzzles were designed the way they were. They were like, this will take a little
bit of backtracking
while.
within certain sections. That was like, oh, I got to walk back up here and then light this thing and then go back the other way and go into the waterfall and then go back and light the thing. So they did a little bit of that. I will say this. Let me follow up what I said before. I was not disappointed now that it's all said and done. I'm not disappointed that they didn't make it a loot-based game with stuff to equip and skills to upgrade. I'm not disappointed in that. I expected
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
I expected it, but by the time the credits rolled, I was really glad that I experienced it. I was really glad that I played it. It's a very uncomfortable game to experience. Let me just put it that way. It's a very beautiful game. It's wonderfully voice acted and what's it called? Like the motion acting, and in some cases some actual live action acting that you kind of see. It's wonderfully acted across the board. The voices are great. The writing is bizarre and phenomenal. I think it's fantastic in those terms. But it's very uncomfortable because, again, we're going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. Should have said this at the top. We'll try to keep this very spoiler-free, but just kind of share some of our experiences with you. The game opens with a narrator who I assumed was Senua. I wasn't sure. And you're rowing a boat on this very creepy, quiet, foggy body of water, and then you eventually go into more of a river. And this is being narrated, and all of a sudden these other voices kick in, and they're at different volumes, and they're talking to each other. They're talking about what you're doing, and throughout the game this happens as they discuss. She can't figure it out. She doesn't know where to go next. Yeah. What's she doing? Why is she doing that? Like they are commenting inside Senua's head on everything Senua's doing, and you get to experience this. And I highly recommend having headphones, or at least some kind of. If you don't have a stellar sound system, which I don't, then wear some headphones. This game's sound quality is amazing. And the voices make the entire experience uncomfortable. The storyline, as that gets uncovered and you start to realize what's going on and kind of what happened and what led up to these struggles that she's having, it's very uncomfortable. It's very disconcerting. There's a lot of horror elements in this game because it's very mind-bending. It's very tragic. There's a massive sense of being chased all the time, especially in later levels. It's very foreboding. And so when the credits rolled, I was glad it was over. I was glad that I played it, but I was glad it was over because it's an uncomfortable game. I know the platinum is said to be fairly easy to get. I think I would have to go back through and find some of the shrines or whatever that you can listen to some of your friend Druth tells you some stories. The guy you were talking about, he kind of sounds like Liam Neeson, and he tells you a story, and it's really cool. Some of those stories they tell are really great. It's like basically Norse mythology. It's very interesting.
The Northmen once said.
Yeah, but I feel like my experience with that game is done, and I'm glad that it's done, but I'm really glad that I had it.
It's 100% done. I deleted that freaking thing as soon as I saw the credits run out. Like, delete. Well,
and to be very clear, it's a very mature game. I don't recommend this be the kind of thing that you play with super young kids. On the other hand, there's some interesting things to talk about and that come out of this when it comes to mental health, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But first, let's talk about the visuals of this game. right at the opening scene, as you're kind of paddling through the water, and she looks back over her shoulder. What did you think about the way this game looked right out of the gate, and then throughout the game? What did you think about the visuals?
So let me just say real quick, I played on the PS4 Pro. I wanted to buy it on PC because I was hyped for this game, by the way. I'm a big Ninja Theory fan, but
See, the only game of theirs that I've played was Enslaved, and I loved it, but I can't say I'm a big fan. It's just one game of theirs I played that I really loved. So
see, I think DMC is great, and I loved Heavenly Sword.
Okay, all right.
So I'm a big fan of theirs. In fact, I do want to say this, and this is true. This isn't just me saying it. I believe it was at the launch of the PS4, like not launch, but like the them revealing the PS4, and if I remember correctly, they showed Hellblade. And I remember being, and this is before our group, I didn't know any of you guys. I remember there's a few people in our group that would probably remember me saying this, but I remember going online, and when people were talking about all the PS4 games they were excited about, Hellblade was the one I was most excited for. Hellblade and Killzone. Killzone ended up being a huge disappointment, and Hellblade, to a certain extent for me, ended up being a disappointment as well. But I'm just saying that because I want people to know this is a game that I've been excited for like 3 or 4 years. So visually, I played it on the PS4 Pro on my 4K monitor, and I was actually a little disappointed by it. Again, this is going to sound like I'm a snob, but maybe
you
it's
are.
coming.
That's okay.
Yeah, I think I am. I thought it looked a little rough. Now, as I played through it a little more, and I did play it with high resolution settings. I did switch it just to check out the 60 frames per second. I didn't feel like it made that big of a difference, so I was like, well, I'd rather the visual upgrade with the 30 frames per second over the 60. So I played it both ways, but mainly I played it in the visual settings for the PS4 Pro. I thought it looked decent, but I was disappointed at first with the way it looked. I was like, oh, I was expecting something prettier. But as the game went on and I kept going into areas, and maybe it was just since it was such a dark game, as they went into like areas like the beach and where it's more lit, it looked good. It did. It was a pretty game, and it definitely looks AAA for sure. Like I said, I feel like it's an indie game the way it's designed with a coat of AAA paint. And when I say a coat of AAA paint, I am not just talking about visuals. I'm also talking about voice acting, performances. You don't see that in indie games.
And even just the combat mechanics themselves are very high quality.
Very high quality. Very high quality. So the production value is really good. So visually, I thought it was, over time, as I went through the entire game, a pretty stunning looking game. Yeah. And I actually would love to see it on PC. Maybe I will buy it on PC when it's like $10 on like a Steam sale, just so I could see it. And maybe at that time
Is it out on PC? Was it out day and date with PS4?
Yeah.
On PC? Okay. Yeah, so visually I actually had a different reaction. I immediately thought, wow, this looks better than I thought. I was kind of expecting something because it's been in development for so long and I knew the price point. I just kind of assumed it wasn't going to deliver, anywhere close to something like a Horizon or an Uncharted 4. And I was actually surprised that, to me, it came pretty close to something like a Horizon, at least in the dark areas. Think about Horizon when you're going down into the caves and you're exploring those deep, dark areas and you're learning more about what happened and you're down in like these, kind of looks like an underground spaceship kind of a thing. Hang on a second. Okay.
See, I feel like kids should only interrupt if they're killing queen fire ants.
Yes, in that case it's okay.
Yeah, because they're saving the world, which, by the way, while I'm talking, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, if they were doing something cute, it's fine, but they just kept coming in for things I didn't need. Like, no, you're 6, brush your own teeth. I'm not. Like, he brings in his toothbrush. Like, can you do it? No, you do it.
Man up, bro.
All right. Anyway, I was talking about the visuals, right?
Yeah, that's what we're on right now.
Talking about the visuals, yeah. So I did think that when it comes to facial stuff, and even as you're running around, you see her hair and the details in the hair and the way that it's, the way that it's pulled back and the different elements that are in there. I'm not sure what's tied in there, all these different beads or whatever is in there. Something very tribal. I thought it was very detailed. Even the armor, the outfit that she's wearing, kind of that leather armor look. I just thought it was so detailed and so impressive. To me, it matched up with Horizon on those levels. Obviously, it doesn't have the grand scope and those amazing views like long distance like Horizon does. I don't
Yeah,
think it.
and I feel like, and not just grainy, but I feel like the textures were a little rigid.
When you
Like
get up
nothing
close
was
to
as
some of the
smooth.
walls, yeah, when you
Yeah.
get up close to some of the walls and some of the rocks, it was impossible not to notice, like, oh, okay, all right, well, that's not done quite as well as some of these other recent games. So
Yeah.
in those areas, it's not as good. In the areas where I think it matters for this game, the facial expressions,
Yeah.
the eyes, all those kind of things, it was top notch, second to none in terms of facial animation and the way that they. And what's her name? Melina Jurgens or whatever her name is, the girl who actually is a video producer for Ninja Theory, who was a stand-in for this character, and they ended up making her the character. I thought that was awesome. She does a great job. Her performance as Senua is fantastic.
Yeah, in
So-
which I want to say this, like I saw
Yeah.
like a little video of her while she was like filming,
Yeah.
and in the game, I don't think Senua is cute. I don't. I
Yeah.
think she looks like a horse mouth, and she's just not cute.
Yeah.
But the girl who actually does her, I'm like, oh, well, hello, redhead.
Oh,
You're a little cutie. She's kind of cute. So I feel like they nailed her face and everything and her
Yeah.
expression. But she looked a little different in the game. Like, I felt like she had more of a horse mouth.
But you know what? That's another reason why I loved the way they designed her, because they didn't make her like a supermodel actress who's coming in to play this role. It felt like a real life Celtic warrior girl who was going through this. So like I was completely engrossed in the story for many reasons, and one of the main ones was, of course, her performance was great, but the look, I thought they nailed the look of someone who probably might have looked like that back in the day. You know, like little hints of maybe kind of attractive, but that didn't really matter. It wasn't about her being attractive. It was about the struggle she had. So I liked that a lot. I thought it was a new take on what seems to be kind of this overflow, this waterfall of female-led characters, right? We got all these female lead characters in games these days. I feel like almost every game that's announced now, unless it's a set franchise, it's going to have a female lead character almost every time, it seems like. And that has made for some very interesting experiences. In other cases, it's made you wonder, you know, why'd they go with a female with this one? And in this case, I thought it was fantastic. The choice that they
Well,
made, and yeah, I thought it was great.
If you do a female lead character, you're guaranteed a 9 out of 10. I mean, everybody
certain
reviews.
From certain
Everybody
websites,
reviews
for
like,
sure.
They're like,
Yeah.
oh, you got a woman character? It's a male character, but he's gay? 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. You hit what we needed. Thank you.
Yeah, you got to get that sweet spot for those reviewers. That's all they care about.
I'm
It's cool.
kidding, of course. I think for this game, and again, you have to play the story to understand it.
Yeah.
It is perfect that she's a female character.
Absolutely.
It doesn't
Absolutely.
to me work for a male.
So visually, I thought it was great. Combat-wise, there's not much more to say about this. We already covered it, but it feels really smooth and it feels really good. It's very basic. They don't do. I mean, there's not really a tutorial. They don't talk about buttons at all in this game. So
yeah,
it's very,
I do want to say that. I know
Yeah.
I'm cutting you off, but I do want to
Yeah.
say that this game treats all of us gamers like intelligent human beings.
Yeah.
And
There's not one
two-
time when there's a button prompt, is there? There's no button prompt.
No,
in this
they
game.
never. They don't even tell you how to solve the puzzles.
Like,
when
how do
you're
you use your
presented.
focus to zoom in and focus on stuff?
Yeah.
You have to figure that out.
Yeah, they just tell you focus.
Yeah,
Focus.
focus,
I'm like, what?
focus.
What are you?
And so I
talking
hit
about?
all the buttons, and finally I found it. And
Yeah.
then when I figured I wanted to run because she was walking real slow, and I was like, oh, there's a little jog button at least. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, you know, a weak swing, strong swing, to dodge, to block, all that stuff you had to discover.
Yep.
You know?
They
as
don't tell
play.
you anything, so they teach you. Here's what they did nail, because again, I'm coming across more negative than probably want to, and I do have strong feelings towards this game, and some of it was negative. But one of the things I feel like they really nailed is that this game, first of all, it does present itself in a AAA way. They did nail that. It presents itself in almost like a movie. Like they wanted.
Yes.
The most important thing I think they wanted to nail here was the story of
Yep.
Senua.
Her struggle. That's what they wanted you to experience.
And the way they
Mhm.
did that is I think, and I don't know them, and I didn't watch an interview. I'm just guessing here. I think the way they felt like they had to nail that is to, yes, have combat, and combat there's a reason for it, but I think they wanted to make it more like a movie, even though it's a game. And they did that by saying, we're not going to have any HUDs. There's no life bar. There's no special moves or meter to let you know when you can use your special abilities. There's no button prompts. There's no QT events. There's nothing like that. It's all you see is the game, and that's her, and nothing else. There's no menus, nothing. And like you said, and maybe this is why they didn't do the action RPG with the upgradable stuff, is they were like, well, if we do that, then we gotta have HUDs, and if we gotta have HUDs, we gotta have menus, and if we gotta have menus, we gotta have blah blah blah. And they're like, well, that would take more time, more money, all that, but also that would kind of take away from what they were trying to establish here, and that was the story of Senua. So I think they nailed that. I think they did a good job of saying, hey, you are intelligent. We're going to throw you in this world, and you're going to figure it out.
Yep.
And while that could at some points, it was frustrating because I was walking in circles. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, there was one time where I completed a puzzle, or I did something. It might have been the first boss I fought or whatever. Yeah, I think it was the first boss I fought. And I was like, am I supposed to just walk back? Like, the game doesn't tell me anything.
Yeah.
And I'm looking in the room where I just defeated the guy, and I'm like, I don't see a new place to walk. Yeah. And when I started walking back, I kept going in circles because I was getting confused and lost. I've already said this before, and I don't blame games for this. I have a terrible sense of direction. If I took a left, I'll remember that I took a right. So I always go the wrong way. Yeah. And so I was like, I don't know. And I was getting irritated. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is very, very frustrating.
They make it pretty. You turn around and you just walk straight back out. It's just like a beeline right back.
So I ended up figuring out, and it may have been there was something in that room, but I don't think there was. I think I did have to. Yeah, I had to run all the way back. Yeah. I did eventually, obviously, figure it out because I beat the game. But this was towards the beginning of the game, like the first hour of playing it, and I was like, I was getting mad. I was like, they literally won't tell me anything. I don't know. I don't know if you want me to go back or if I'm supposed to be looking for some secret door that opened. And so now that I'm done with the game, and I get the game, and I get the tone, and I get what they were trying to do, now I'm like, oh, that was smart. Yeah. They didn't tell me anything. Yeah. They presented it in like a movie that I'm controlling, and they don't want anything interrupting. You know how gamers, and I'm not big on this, where they're like, it breaks the immersion. There's nothing in this game that breaks your immersion. Nope. There's no button prompts, interruptions.
Right. Yeah, the menu is literally just there, so if you want to, change some visual or audio options or exit, like there's nothing else to do in terms of. It doesn't feel like you go into a menu screen whatsoever, and they really keep it simple. It's all right there, like you described. The closest thing they have to a meter refilling is your focus ability, which you can learn in the environment to solve puzzles. You have to. You can use it to uncover secret areas, and you can use it in battle to either slow down time for certain enemies and lock them down and start wailing on them, or some enemies go into kind of a shadow mode where they can't be seen, and you use that focus to reveal them and then fight them. And that thing makes a very big, blue circle on the left side of your screen, right behind the Senua, when it's ready to use. And the voices in your head will also tell you that it's ready to use. So that's the closest thing.
It's still smartly done because it's part of your, like it's on your body, like it flashes on your body. It's on a mirror or something.
Yeah, no HUD whatsoever. Yeah.
So
you get an idea throughout the game you get an idea of how many times you can be hit. You get an idea of the way the red is kind of coming in on the side of the screen when you're hit too many times and you start to fall. For the most part, you just hit the buttons real fast to get back up. Too many times of that, then
I died like 2 times because when she dropped to her knees, I was just waiting for her to recover.
And they came over and hit you?
And then they just killed me, and I'm like, this is stupid. And then one time I was just accidentally like slamming the button because I think I was trying to swing at the guy. Yeah. And I was slamming it, and then he knocked me down. And when I did that, she kind of like popped.
She got back up quick. Yeah.
And then I did it some more, and then she popped up and she jumped up, and I was like, oh.
Yeah. See.
So when they don't tell you that. Your knees, you're not dead. You can still try to pop yourself back.
A lot of other games would have a little icon appear in the corner, and it showed the little X button, and it would like be pushing over and over again. Right. Yep. Yeah. But this one definitely does not do that. I want to talk real quick about the puzzles in the game. Obviously, by the way, if I didn't say this clearly enough, I liked the combat. There's some cool combos that I uncovered, especially at the end. I thought about halfway through the game, I thought I was done with combat because some things happened and I figured, okay, the rest of this game is all going to be puzzles and storytelling. Nope, the combat comes back with a vengeance, and it gets very difficult, very fun, but very difficult.
Yeah,
And
I think you go like a couple hours with no combat, kind of towards the middle,
right,
towards end,
and then it really
and
doubles down
then
on the
at the
combat.
very end, it like throws everything at you.
Yep. And there's some cool combos you can use. You know, a combination of light and heavy attacks, and attacking right after a block, or you can run and do a jump stab and that kind of stuff, or you can do like a lunge stab, things like that. That I just kind of learned from messing around with the buttons. So I really liked the combat. It felt really good. It does get repetitive because again, there's nothing to upgrade, no new weapon types to get, so it does get a little repetitive. But it always felt pretty desperate because Senua is constantly in this moment, in this. Like I said, it's very foreboding, so everything feels desperate. She's in desperation all the time. So even every battle, I thought, kind of felt desperate, had to win. So the times that I died had more to do with the puzzles. Let's talk about puzzles real quick. I would liken the puzzles to not quite as creative as some of the stuff that you have in the tombs in Rise of the Tomb Raider, but kind of close to those a little bit in some of the areas, and also in some ways reminded me of some of the puzzles you get in the God of War games, where it's very kind of obvious, but there is some backtracking. Excuse me. And sometimes where, you have to, you have to go over here, hit this button, come over this way, and then move that into place, and then come back again. So it very much reminded me of those kind of games that are really action heavy, but then they give you this long break, maybe even Uncharted, where you have this long break of puzzles. It's just that it had a lot of them, and it had a lot of them back to back to back to back.
Yeah.
And I didn't dislike them. I actually thought some of them were creative, but there were times when I was like, oh, you're going to make me find more of these runes. That was the part that annoyed me the most about this game, was there were times when at like the 5th or 6th puzzle in a row, in the same area, so the environment looks the same, and I now have to solve another puzzle because I went up a set of stairs and there's another door that's blocked until I solve a puzzle. That kind of annoyed me. That's the only part of this game where that actually removed me from the immersion a little bit, because they were making me pause to figure out what am I supposed to do next. So that's the biggest knock that I have on the game, is that I thought sometimes the puzzles were overdone. They were simple and yet at times a little bit frustrating, because I'm like, okay, where do I have to go? So I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. There were a few of the puzzles that were creative. There's one in particular where you use these giant face kind of masks, these giant bronze masks. I won't say much else about them, but you use those to solve the puzzle. That one was interesting because I thought that was a creative way to have you approach the environment. So anyway, did you enjoy the puzzles? I know you're not a really big puzzle guy, so I assumed that would frustrate you.
Well, like I said at the beginning, and I meant it and I stand by it, it's not a fun game to play in my opinion. I thought the gameplay, like combat, it gets fun once you figure it out, but it does get repetitive. The only time it felt satisfying is when I would nail it. Like I could just take on 5 guys and not be touched once. That's when it was fun. When I would get frustrated is when I was doing fine, or I would tell it to block or whatever, and it wouldn't read me, and I would get hit by somebody from behind, and I was just getting frustrated. And again, that could have been me, but I feel like in some situations there was times where I was hitting the button and they were still going through like it was nothing, and I was getting frustrated.
Yeah, see, I never had that issue. Unless they were doing a strong attack, they would bust through my block.
Yeah.
But I never had that issue with combat.
Maybe that was what it was. I don't know.
Yeah.
The combat was fine. I ended up enjoying that, and even towards the end, I had gotten so good that even when you're facing the waves and waves without spoiling it, I got into a rhythm where I was just kicking their butts. So that wasn't the issue. I enjoyed the combat. Again, I would have liked more depth, but I understand why they didn't have it. My thing is, it wasn't a fun game because it wasn't like a game built on exploration. These areas were not huge, and there was no reward for exploring. And the only thing that they could do as a filler was puzzles. And again, I don't have a love for puzzles, but I don't hate them if they're done right. This is kind of like what you were saying. My issue with this felt like, well, we've got a 3-hour game. We can double this by just adding on these simple puzzles in these areas. And they're simple to create, but they're going to add time to figure out. And it almost felt tacked on because there were so many of them.
There's
if
a
it was
lot.
done,
Yeah.
if it was done like 4 or 5 times, okay. Or if they changed it up, like I said, I liked the illusion area
Yeah.
because it was done different than the fire area or wherever I was in.
Well, and keep in mind, Senua as a character, at the way you control her, she is not this super fast and nimble, climb up on everything type of a character.
No.
That's not how she's designed. Of course, in combat, you're fast and nimble, but in terms of exploration, you're walking at a very slow pace, or you
Yeah,
can
I
do a
didn't
light
like that
jog.
either. I felt
You-
like she was way too slow.
You can
which
walk
I feel
or
like,
do a light jog. So as they are asking you to go way across certain environments and then back again and then up a set of stairs and then back down and then go reset the thing, sometimes it just feels like a waste of time. It feels like time filler. But on the other hand, I'll try to play devil's advocate to my own little complaint here. On the other hand, it does give you lots of time to listen to the dialogue that's going on, because sometimes a narrator will kick in, and I think it's just Senua narrating about herself. And
Yeah.
sometimes the other voices in the head, which, by the way, are different actresses, I found out later, that are talking and arguing back and forth. Or if you find one of those kind of lore stones to activate, you can listen to Druth tell a story. So there's opportunities to kind of fill that time with some of the audio, which is really interesting. But even though that is really neat, and I like that they give you space to experience that, it still felt like a little bit too much. It did take away from the fun a little bit for me. Other than that, I still thought it was a good game experience, although a very uncomfortable one, because of the way that they addressed mental illness and mental health in this game. And it's not directly talked about, obviously. They talk about voices in the head, and you experience all of it. But this game is set, I want to ask you about the setting before we talk about the mental health side. This game is set back in the old Celt and Viking days, probably around 900 AD, something like that. It's a long time ago. And why do you think they set it at this time? Why wasn't it in medieval times? Why not in, modern day America? Why not in old school England?
To
why
give you
why
the
this?
actual answer that I want to give you, I'd have to spoil the game, so I'm not going to do that. But it's pretty obvious to me why they took us so far back. Now, why they picked, like, Celtic, I don't know. But as far as they had to go back to when humanity was a little more raw and more barbaric
Yeah.
to tell this story.
Makes sense.
Because, and again, without spoiling it, they were a little more ignorant to the things that were going on with certain characters in this game,
Right.
and how to handle them.
Yep.
So
That's a good point.
I think the setting was chosen wisely. I think the time period was chosen wisely for the story. But I also think visually it was something intelligent to choose, because for me personally, I like that setting. I like
I do
that
too.
barbaric Viking seas and forests and rocks, and I liked it. I thought it was. I feel like we don't do reviews or anything, but we covered visuals. I'd give a thumbs up for visuals. For combat, I'm gonna say combat and gameplay. I'm giving it a thumbs down. I
Ugh.
didn't have fun with it, right? For story and setting, I'm gonna give it a thumbs up. So it's getting 2 out of the 3. And the reason why I'm giving thumbs up is because setting it totally nails the setting. Not only visually, but with sound effects and just everything. The whole journey she goes on, every area she goes in, is pretty detailed, and they just really nail what they're trying to do. Like,
Now, if I had to do that, I'd give it thumbs up across all 3, with a little caveat of, hey, the puzzles do get repetitive and cumbersome because she doesn't move really smooth.
Well,
So,
and the only reason why I'm giving it a
Yeah.
thumbs down is not because I think the combat's broken or that the puzzles were too hard, because I know that's what people are going to be like, they're good at puzzles. The puzzles didn't even take me that long.
no,
I
they're not
figured
that
them
tough.
out.
There was 1 or 2 that took me
I'm
an extra
saying
minute.
I didn't have fun playing this game.
Yeah.
I just didn't have fun. I didn't sit there and go, this is a joy. I sat there and played this and went, this is freaking annoying, or
It's
this
depressing.
is frustrating me.
It's sad.
Or yeah, and it is, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe the story and the character and the constant feedback from the voices in your head and all that stuff can weigh on you. But I really think it was just the combat and the puzzles were just like, they weren't overly fun for me. So when you combine it all, and you're literally just doing those 2 things over and over, I'm like, not fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like Mad Max. Like I have fun with certain things in it, but then there's the other stuff that just weighs it down. I'm like overall not fun. So I don't think it's broken. I wouldn't like if I was reviewing it. I wouldn't be like drop it 10 points because I didn't like. It's objectively it's well done. Like the puzzles are smart. I think the puzzles are smart. I think the
Most of them
combat's
are.
smooth.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of them are just tacked on, but
Yeah.
most of them are smart.
Most of them are.
And
yeah.
then setting, like I said, I think the setting is perfect. I think the thing I want to talk about the most is the story because that's the reason, even though I didn't have fun, it's the only reason I played this game. Because I would have stopped it after like the first couple hours and been like, no, there's no reason to
Yeah.
play this.
Yeah, no, so I actually thought the combat was much better, but then again, you compared it more to Dark Souls, whereas I didn't really. I mean, I thought it had little touches of The Witcher here and there, and a few other games like that, where you're kind of you're what's it called when you're going sideways? You're strafing back and forth a little bit, dodging and then attacking. So anyway, I do give it thumbs up in all those major areas. Overall, this game is going to be in my top 10, unless between now and the end of the year, there would have to be several. I won't tell you how many, but there have to be several games that would bump it way down. And there's already a few I'm expecting to bump it down, but there'd have to be a lot because this one's pretty high up there. I have a lot of admiration for this game, and it's interesting when the credits rolled. I thought this was a really good experience. Sad, and depressing in a lot of ways for a lot of good reasons, but it was still very sad. But I thought this is pretty good. And then I watched. They make this documentary available to you. Did you watch that when you finished the game?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I deleted the game.
This little documentary pops up on the main menu screen after the game is over, and you can watch it. And it goes into, it's probably like 30 minutes long, and it shows you the background story. The Ninja Theory main director is narrating it, and he's walking you through everything from conception, the original idea, and some of the original artwork, all the way through bringing in some mental health professionals that were there the entire time. Some people who are part of these recovery clinics that have actual stories of people who struggle with this stuff, and they would come in and provide stories, and they incorporated those stories directly into Senua's experience. That made me have a ton more admiration for what they did in this game, and all of a sudden in my mind it definitely went up a notch or two, just having that background knowledge of what they included, of how deep they went into the mental health and mental issues side of this game. And then, of course, they did show some clips here and there of their performances. And so not only the main character, the main lead, is she's walking around making all the facial expressions. They got cameras all over, and they even showed her, like, there's many times when Senua just wails out in just anguish. These screams that are just, they make the hairs on your arm stand up. They're just these horrifying screams because of something she just witnessed or experienced. And then there's other times when they would show the way they set up this room with the omnidirectional mic right in the middle of it, and they had three voice actors that would walk around, and they were very in character. They were the voices, two ladies and a guy, and they'd be circling this mic, getting closer at times, farther away at times, talking to each other and talking about her. That was fascinating to me. Like the audio, the efforts that they put into the audio were amazing. And I did like the music as well. So that made it interesting to me, and that started to make me think about games that address mental illness. And so without us going into any kind of spoilers, is there anything else you wanted to say about the story? There's not too much more I want to say about the story except to say this is a very personal and mental struggle that Senua is having. And if you play this game, just be ready for a very different story type experience. And I think it addresses mental health in a way that no other game has. A few other games have tried in other ways, but no other game has, and it's very fascinating to me, especially with knowing the background on it. Anything else, though, that you want to say about story before we wrap it up?
I would say that to end my review or opinion of this is I think this game's worth playing. I think most people, 90% of the people that listen to me talk, are going to enjoy the gameplay and combat more than I did. But I think it's worth playing through to get the story. Yeah. And I also want to make sure I'm very clear, while I doubt it's going to finish in my top 10 right now, it's in my top 10, but that's because I only have 10 games for this year. But I would say I have a very, very high respect for what they did. I really do. And I'm not just saying this. I really mean it. Like, I think what they were trying to accomplish and what they did with the limited budget, I don't know if we even mentioned this, but Ninja Theory is like 20 people. So this is a small team making a triple
And this wasn't
A
even everyone
experience.
from Ninja Theory. It was anywhere
Yeah.
from 13 to 20 members of Ninja
Yeah.
Theory at any given time that were working on this thing. So it was a small
Yeah.
team.
Yeah,
Small team.
because I think they have another team working on other stuff.
Right.
So it's a small team. It was a very intimate story, intimate game, and I thought they nailed what they were trying to accomplish. I have a lot of respect, and I do think it's worth playing through. I just didn't like it as much as
That's
other
fair.
people.
No, that's fair. So we'll leave it at that. We won't let you guys get spoiled on any of the storyline stuff. If you play it, we want to hear what you think. It is, again, not the kind of thing that you sit down with a whole bunch of snacks and with some friends and you like laugh your way through it. I would say it's a very personal experience. Wear some headphones, play it alone if you get a chance, and just let the whole experience happen. It's very intriguing, very interesting. But there are some other games that have addressed mental health and mental issues, mental struggles over the years. And so I wanted to just highlight a few of those before we close things out. I asked some of our community to chime in on some of these.
Mm-hmm.
And so here are some, whether they were throughout the entire game or whether they were just certain moments in certain games. I wanted to highlight a few. So one that jumps to mind for me is Metal Gear Solid, and I'll say that really as the entire series. Metal Gear Solid 1, of course, had Psycho Mantis, which really mess with your head, and they give you a lot of illusion stuff, and there's some twists in that. It happens even more so in Metal Gear Solid 2, and then Metal Gear Solid 3 is crazy, especially there's a scene, slight spoiler alert if this is going to bother you, there's a scene where you're walking up this river. It's about thigh deep, right? So it's above your knees, so you're kind of wading really slowly upstream this river, and all the bodies of the soldiers that you've killed are going by you. And that's just really trippy. And, of course, it's not actually happening, but it's this kind of vision that you're being given. Very, very interesting. Some trippy stuff in those games. And, of course, Metal Gear Solid 5 has a few very trippy kind of mind-bending moments as well. But I wanted to mention that one as one. I haven't played Ether 1, but I have heard that it addresses dementia and Alzheimer's in some unique ways in its storyline. I actually have some family who struggles with that affliction, so I'm kind of interested to try that game now. But I've never played it. You never played Ether 1, right?
No.
It's one of those walking simulator narrative things, I think.
Oop, I'm out.
So, so anyway, I'll try it and I'll let you know how much you should hate it. Did you ever play the Alice games? I never did. There's
No, Alice in Madness. No.
Yeah, Alice Madness Returns is the second one. I forget the name of the first one offhand. I think it's I'm blanking out on the guy's name. I apologize. But anyway, they're very crazy looking. They look like horror games, but I've heard they very much address this idea of dreams and imagination, hallucination, that kind of thing. I don't know the details there, but people brought that one up several times when I asked about games that deal with health or mental health issues. Here's an interesting one. I think you've played. You played Spec Ops: The Line, right?
Yeah.
So this apparently addresses some PTSD issues. Is that true? Do you feel like that game addresses that?
Yeah. I can't talk about it, but it's one of those games where I would say, so I can't spoil it or anything for you guys.
Yeah.
It's a must play. And I know it's going back a generation, but if you have a PC, you can get it real cheap on PC, and it'll look good too, and it'll play good. Combat and all that's okay, but the story and the way it finishes is one of those jaw-dropping moments where you're like,
yeah,
oh my gosh. So yeah, it's
okay,
totally worth playing through, and yes, it deals with, without spoiling, issues.
Okay. We know that Heavy Rain deals a lot with trauma and loss, and there's a lot involved with that, dealing with the loss of a loved one and other things. We won't go too far into that, but it's called Heavy Rain for a reason. It is a heavy game. In addition to Beyond Two Souls, I don't know exactly what Beyond Two Souls deals with. That one was suggested to me by a couple people as well, but apparently also addresses certain mental and memory type struggles. We'll just say that.
Yeah.
And I apologize, I haven't played all of these. A lot of these are secondhand things that I was given. I was told that Oxenfree deals with some tragedy and loss type stuff you have to deal with, but neither one of us have played it because it's a indie TGT, right? So we have not played that one, but I've heard Oxenfree is part of that. Braid, I do remember this one. It has an interesting kind of turn in the story when you realize what's happening and why and who you are and what it is you're actually doing. Again, dealing with not so much loss in terms of death, but loss in a different way of a loved one. Very interesting. Limbo, I won't say anything else about it. There's not a written or spoken story here, but the environment tells you everything you need to know, and by the time you get to the end, you start to realize what's going on. Very twisted and weird. Same thing with Inside. Very twisted up and weird, and definitely showing some kind of mental type experience that's going on. Eternal Darkness, one of my favorite GameCube games, and I would still love it if they would make that spiritual successor that they talked about a little while back.
I don't think that's ever happened.
I don't think it is either. But Eternal Darkness is one that really messes with your head. Lots of hallucinations, and you're going back and experiencing stuff from people in the past, and so you're doing some timeline jumping, but it really is a lot of messing with your head. And I won't say too much more about that one either, but Eternal Darkness is a great one. It looks pretty rough now. It's 3 generations ago, I guess, of consoles, so it does look kind of rough, but it's still a great experience. I'll go through these last 3 quickly. Dead Space, Max Payne, Psychonauts all deal with mental health and mental issues in their own unique ways. In some cases in a funny way, and in some cases in depressing and terrifying ways. So kind of interesting. Oh, also To the Moon. That was suggested to me, and I have played that one. It does sort of address some mental issue type stuff towards the end. Won't say anything else about that one either. A lot of that stuff is spoilers. The thing about Hellblade that makes it unique is it addresses this issue head on right from the beginning. You clearly have voices in your head right from the top. You're clearly having some sort of mental struggle right from the top. That's not a spoiler. And so that's what makes Hellblade, in my opinion, very unique. The entire experience has you questioning what's going on and why and what's real and what's not, and who is it exactly that's talking to you, and what led to this, and it's a very, very unique game. Like Derek said, I highly recommend for most people to play it, and I do think that most of you will enjoy it. It's worth trying. It's a unique experience that you're not going to get many other places. So there you go. That wraps up our discussion of Hellblade. Probably won't be talking too much more about it since we both finished it until Game of the Year discussions roll around. We'll talk about it there because I think for me it'll be in my top 10. We'll have to wait and see.
Will be in my No of the Year.
No, it won't. This is not No Man's Sky, my friend. This is better than.
I'm gonna treat it like No Man's Sky.
All right, well, that wraps us up for episode 84. We'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on Hellblade. It's a very sensitive topic in terms of the mental health side, but also just from a gameplay perspective. From a video game point of view, what did you think about it? We want to hear what you thought. And I'm excited to see what Ninja Theory has next. They are clearly a very thoughtful developer, so it'll be interesting to see what they come up with next.
I really like them, and so I really, really want this game to succeed. So even though I'm not, like, overly praising it, like, if I had to score it, I'd probably give it an 8 just because of the visual story and setting being so high for me. But I really want it to succeed because I want them to grow. Like, I want to see them put more games out. I know you only played Enslaved, but I'm telling you, Heavenly Sword, for its time, if you go back and play it now, you're like, ugh. Even Enslaved, I went back and played that, and I was like, ooh.
Well, I've got DMC downloaded and in my backlog folder on the PS4. So I've considered, after playing this, giving that one a shot. So we'll see.
I mean, it's the 180 of Hellblade,
right?
As far as attitude and tone.
Well, I've played Devil May Cry games before. I played 3 of them, I think. So
but this one's probably to me worse. It's way over the top, but it's really a fun game. And
cool.
The point I'm trying to make is I'd love for them to succeed for multiple reasons, for them to grow, but also with. And I posted this in our group today. There was a video made by I think his name's Tamir on GameSpot. And he's a big Ninja Theory fan as well, like I am. And he was like, Hellblade is way more important than you realize. And what his whole video was, and it was a really good video, is that if it succeeds, this could change how video games are released, meaning we won't always be reliant on indies and big publisher AAA titles. We'll now get that middle guy back.
Right.
Which is what we've been missing. And this type of release, and one of the things that the main dude from Ninja Theory, I forgot his name, but the co-owner, and he was the lead guy for the Hellblade game, one of the things he says is that if it succeeds, then you'll see others do this. And what he loved about making Hellblade is he didn't have to answer to anybody else. He didn't have to answer to a publisher. Like when he was creating DMC and rebooting it, he had to answer to Capcom. When he did Heavenly Sword, he had to answer to Sony. When he did Enslaved, I don't remember who published that, but he had to. I think it was EA or something like that. He had to answer to them. On Hellblade, he had to answer to nobody. It was just him and the team creating this game.
Yeah, that must have been freeing for him. Yeah.
Exactly. So if this game succeeds, what that's going to do is open the door for more AAA middle tier games to just go digital only, come out at like $20 to $30, maybe $40, and be that AAA experience without the $60, $70 price tag, and without the publishers like, Ubisoft, who has like their systems are like, you have to make the game this way.
Yep.
You won't have that anymore, so that will give them more freedom.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. That'd be very interesting. I have a hard time believing this game won't do at least decent numbers. There's not a lot of competition right now. People are hungry for single-player experiences.
The big thing is the reviews. I mean, the game. I didn't check the Metacritic. I'll check it real quick.
I think it's getting good reviews overall. That's what I
overall
remember.
It was reviewing real good, and so.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if I'm delaying. Yeah, it's an 82 right now.
Yeah.
Which is really good.
It's great.
For 36 reviews, it's at an 82.
That's great.
And the reason why I was saying this is, like you said, it's not a lot going on. And if you go to all the big websites, IGN, GameSpot, all them, they're doing stories on this. They're doing their reviews. They're doing stories about the game. They're doing interviews with the Ninja Theory team. This game is everywhere. So there's a ton of people that didn't even know anything about this game. They're like, oh, I want to go play it. It's a good game that's coming out on the PlayStation. I want it. And it's only $30. Yeah. That's the other thing that they get us surprised about. So I'm hoping it'll do well. It sounds like it will do well, but for multiple reasons, I want this to succeed.
Yep, me too. And I think it will. So go check it out, you guys. It's only $30 if you've got a few extra dollars to spend looking for an interesting video game experience this month. Go check that out. Speaking of going to check things out, make sure you go to check us out on YouTube, on Facebook, iTunes. Give us a rating wherever you listen to us. That would be great. We'd really appreciate it. Maybe share us with some friends that you think might enjoy the show. And thanks, as always, for listening. We'll see you guys next week.
Who is your daddy? I am the father.
You fathers will understand.
My father taught me many things here.
I got an idea. How about you all sit there quietly while I make dad noises?